Hey, so this is something I really want to talk about, but I've not done for a long time. But I'll say it anyway. I am done with the racism in this country, and I'm glad justice is finally arriving. And I just want to put this out. I don't. I hate how in America we have this tendency of avoiding the experiences of other cultures, other peoples, and avoiding acknowledging that, just looking from a white Anglo-Saxon perspective, white Anglo-Saxon male perspective, and not thinking about the billions upon billions of other experiences of different cultures and cultures within cultures in this country, and it's destroying us. And I really, George Floyd's death was a terrible, disgusting thing, and it shows just how disconnected we have become with the systemic racism in our country, and it's really fucked up. And once again, I'm not the biggest fan of BLM, but I support the movement, I support the protests for the most part. I support all these people coming together and achieving things and fighting for equality and fighting for a better future for their families, their kids, their loved ones. And what really touches me, I see so many young black teenagers, especially black women teenagers, who are protesting with goths and hippies and Muslims and Christians, and it's just, it reminds me of the America I believe in. It reminds me this culture can still do some good. Um, Something I really will say, I really do support more the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s versus a lot of the protests that have been going on in the past. Well, once again, I think BLM has done a lot of good things, but I think the leadership is pretty disconnected from the overall people they're supporting. And I don't agree with everything the BLM leadership. I really don't agree with the looters and crap. But like every movement, like every social movement, you're gonna have bad eggs. You're gonna have good eggs. I really, really don't agree with like some of the people in BLM, the extreme like Antifa people. But at the same time, they're trying to do good and they're trying to do good things, and there is still a certain spirit, and there's plenty of good there's plenty of people of spirituality in on this. There's plenty of people of faith trying to make a difference, and the real thing I really have an issue with when it comes to being a white Christian in Madison, Wisconsin, is just the huge disconnect white Christians have had with the persecution and the abhorrent treatment of black people. Like, it really pisses me off that so many denominations give more of a shit about telling two grown adults, rich white adults for that matter, on telling them how far is too far, telling them to hold hands and peck. I think I've been to parishes where people are more concerned with telling two grown adults how to date and what they should do than I have ever heard them talk about racism or helping the poor, and it pisses me off. And it's kind of the reason why I don't go to church anymore in this area. I really hate how, and Trump just made everything worse. I really hate how in this country, not just religion, but there's like a cultural like ignorance of the experiences of so many different people from throughout the world. And like even within our own country, we don't acknowledge like the hardships African American families go through. We don't acknowledge the hardships of African American LGBT. It's really disgusting. It's really one of the biggest things I have against American culture. I grew up in the time of I grew up in the early 2000s, late 90s, and I loved black hip hop. I loved Jason Del Rio. I loved Del Rio. I loved Beyonce. I loved Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls. I grew up with black hip hop and early rap, and I really liked it. And it really it's song of relationships, it's a song of day to day life, and I really liked it. I liked Out of the Underground. I loved Straight Outta Compton. That was good stuff. And I will say this: I think that a lot of the, oh, not just black, but hip hop and rap in general have just fallen into such a stagnant state in the past couple of years since like 2013. I just don't listen to much of it anymore. I'm just listening to emo goth rock nowadays. But I think we really need to acknowledge that we need this country is more than just your average 19, your average cul-de-sac, upper middle class white family. I think we need to start representing people more. But I think we really need to acknowledge all the issues that are going on in our country. We need to acknowledge that George Floyd's death was a tragedy. But the weird thing is, it happened every day, and it's been happening every day for decades, at the very least. We just ignore it. We just don't pay attention to it. I think we really need to look at the systemic issues going on in our country, our religions, our government, and we need to be inclusive, but not a forced inclusion, but we need to improve our education system. We really need to look at the black culture. We need to stop trying to whitewash people. We need to stop trying to make everyone the same. We really need to stop trying to make everyone look like the image we want them to look like. We need to stop being ignorant of other people's like cliques or their social status or just how they dress, what music they listen to, who they vote for. I mean, I remember when I was a kid in America, I didn't see all the tribalism we have now. It's really sickening. We didn't have all this tribalism of left versus right. We didn't have tribalism within tribes. It was we agreed to disagree. We didn't judge people on who we voted for in the last election. We didn't act so childish and offended by people having different opinions. We didn't act so childish and ignorant of other people coming from different walks of life. We didn't have all that. Well, maybe I'm just romanticizing the past, but I don't remember seeing that much or experiencing that much. I didn't see it in the media really that much. When I would watch a show in the 90s and early 2000s and have a black character, it felt normal. I didn't care. Like, my favorite episode of Stack Shock my favorite episode of that Stack Shock cartoon, that superhero black kid with the freaking electric mutant powers from the early 2000s. There's two episodes that really come to mind. There's an episode where Static is in Africa with his family, and he makes this line saying, for the first time in my life, I don't feel like the outsider. I'm a black kid in a predominantly black country, and I don't feel like an outsider. And this is back in the fucking early 2000s. Now compare that to 90% of the shit on Cartoon Network now, and you have Teen Titans Go and its retardation, and you see how we've degraded. We've seen the culture we had going in the 90s and early 2000s was a culture of trying to make a respecting people. It was, and once again, this is probably just me seeing what I observed, and it's from my experience. I'm not saying that there wasn't racism or this kind of tribalism back then, but it felt like we just respected people more. We had episodes of Teen Titans, the original Teen Titans, that dealt with racism, and compare that to the stuff we have in the media now, with it either not acknowledging things, just being idiots and just making fart jokes constantly because we're a bunch of fucking retards that don't understand what good television is, or we create tribalism, we create social justice tribalism, we try to put people in the boxes, and we all do it left and right. We try to make everyone either the same or think if they're not agreeing with my viewpoints, they're an idiot. Another episode Static I really liked was the episode where they're at like this Christmas, and it's like they're at this freaking Baptist church, and they have the tribes of Israel. They have Jewish people and Islamic people all gathered praying and like loving God and stuff. It was deep. You had this deepness and spirituality of acceptance and social justice back then, but it wasn't based out of political bullshit. It was based out of love and respect and trying to have a multicultural culture that embraced the stranger, that embraced the different person. And that's what something that's really pisses me off about the cartoon industry, the animation industry, and pretty much a lot of the in a lot of the entertainment industry that I still put my energy into, is this idea that we have to force it. Everything has to be a statement. I mean, if you look at Dr. King, he worked with numerous different religions, different cultures. He worked with Muslims, he worked with Christians, worked with Catholics, worked with Orthodox, worked with Jews. And all these people of different cultures and faiths marched with him in his campaign to fight against racism. And I see elements of that in the BLM movement. At the same time, I see a lot of extreme, like, political tribalism. And I don't think that's going to do anything good. There was a journalist who I was reading on the Times the other day, a very liberal, spiritual writer, who said, if we want to come out of COVID and all this crap that's happened in the past year for the better, make a better time for our families, our loved ones, our friends and family, we need to bring back like us just talking about, the spirituality of being an American, the spirituality of accepting people and having a higher faith in something bigger than ourselves. And that could be gods, it could be social justice, it could be humanism. But in the end, spirituality, and I really appreciate this from the early protests and civil rights movements, the 60s and 70s, was highly faith-based. It was both Muslim and Christian. There's a lot of Abrahamic spirituality that went into the founding of the civil rights movement. And that changed the world. It really did. And was so much more peaceful and productive than I think a lot of elements of BLM is. I think BLM is doing a really good job in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of good people fighting for the right reasons. Once again, I am so in love when I see black teenagers and goths and emos and all sorts of people walking for the rights of black people, for the rights of all Americans to have a better world, to be whoever they want to be, to have whatever job they want to have that kind of education they want to have. And I think whenever you have a force or move or counter movement that tries and keep people in boxes and keep them pigeonholed in certain roles and jobs and walks of life based on their gender or race or whatever, I think you're a fucking idiot who can go kill yourself. Another really good show that really makes me, and once again, I'm a white ass fucking honky from Wisconsin, okay? I literally have no real black friends, but I play black acquaintances, and I think they're really cool dudes. I really like black Hokages. I really like black Naruto fans. I think they're awesome. I love how a lot of YouTubers I love online are black weeaboos. It's like my favorite stereotype. It's a good stereotype, and I like it. Something I really, really don't like about... never mind. I can wait for another time. Something I really liked about a show I grew up with as a kid was Boondocks, the most controversial show probably in the past 20 years. Because it was a black African-American writer who was legitimately an African-American and not some honky-ass cracker. Pardon me for saying that. I know I sound like such a hypocrite for saying that. But he was a guy who mocked the current black generation for not appreciating things Martin Luther King fought for. And I think if Boondocks came out again in this current era, I think it'd be probably the most talked about show in all of television. I think it would get so much attention, both negative and bad, from both races, from both sides at once. And I think it could do some serious good in criticizing the elements of American culture, because Boondocks always criticize not just like the current African American generation, but white people, American government, the 10%ers and all that shit. Rich versus the poor, all sorts of stereotypes that, well, it was predominantly black, but they did stereotypes, so many stereotypes and so many satire of American culture in the post 9/11 world. It was groundbreaking, but now it's become so forgotten. I think it would do so much good if it came out now. I just want us to go back to a certain time when we didn't fight over where we had spirituality, deep spirituality, and we loved and accepted each other as human beings. We didn't have all this tribalism and pigeonholing that we have now. And once again, maybe it was just the way I grew up in the community I grew up in and the way I perceive things, but it just felt more loving and wholesome than what we have now with so much in your face about everything. It's just sickening. I mean, progressively as I've gotten older, the culture has been increasingly just getting more worse in certain aspects. It's been improving in a lot of aspects too. Don't get me wrong. There's been a lot of social and cool progress in the video game industry that I really like. I really like a lot of the new things that have come out. Like a lot of my favorite video game companies or D&D. There's been a lot of cool shows and games that have come out in the past 15 years since I was a kid. And it's been good stuff. There's been a lot of good shows and anime that have come out that I really enjoy. But it just feels like a certain soul to our media and our storytelling, I think, has just decreased, especially in the last 4 or 5 years, where everything has to be about tribalism and making a statement about everything. I think when I look back at shows like Static Shock and Boondocks, they weren't doing these videos, they weren't making these episodes to get woke points or be shocking or to disturb people or to put people in place. They weren't doing it for tribalistic victory. They're doing it to be honest and to really make people think. They were doing it not. They weren't really. Yeah, well, they could say they're doing it for shock humor, at least for Boondocks. But you could also argue they were deeply just trying to show people a different way of thinking and show them different experiences, but in a very healthy way. And that's something I think we all need to get back to. I don't know. I'm just some emo dumbass nerd who plays Elder Scrolls Online 24/7 and lives with his parents. I don't know. But I want to close this with a prayer, if you would. Nothing like Jesus freakish or anything particular, but just a prayer to God to help us out, if you don't mind. Dear Heavenly Father, please forgive us for our hatred for each other, for how we've destroyed our bonds and our families and our love for each other and our sense of community and our respect for other human beings, and trying to make everyone either like us or we hate them for being so. Please bring us to a culture of love and acceptance and opportunity for everyone. Let us acknowledge that we are all made in your image, and we are all works of art, made to be exactly as we are and not tampered with by human hands. Let everyone have an opportunity to be exactly as they are and be loved and accepted exactly as they are. Let us learn to love and accept each other, but also work to fix some serious issues in our culture and our world, and make a more loving, accepting, creative, nerdy, weird, diverse country that we all grew up in and we all want to raise our kids in and future generations in. A world that reflects love and respect for all human beings. A world that is diverse and full of so many different colors colors and shapes and sizes and cliques imaginable, where all people are welcomed into your temple exactly as they are, and they ascend exactly as they are, as you made them. Please. Amen. Well, folks, it's been good. I hope you all are doing well. I will be making more comedic role-playing videos pretty soon. Till next time, stay sane.